Hello and welcome to Quines Cast, Scotland's intersectional feminist arts podcast. My name is Hannah Lavery.
And I'm Caitlin Skinner, and we are your hosts for the second series of Quines Cast.
Woohoo!
This is our first episode in the season, and today's theme is RIOT.
On each episode, we invite leading feminist writers, poets, playwrights and musicians to respond to our theme.
Today we are joined by musician PAIX, author and activist Jessica Gaitán Johannesson, poet Joelle Taylor, and we will also have a short play written by Maryam Hamidi.
Quines Cast is brought to you by feminist theatre company Stella Quines in association with the Traverse Theatre.
And the word Quines, if you didn't know already, is a Scottish word for women. Hello everyone and welcome back. It is so good to have you here for season 2 and to be back in the studio with you, lovely Hannah. We have some really excellent feminist artists in the lineup across the season. I'm very excited for you to get to hear them all, and also some really rich themes that we're going to explore. And here we are in episode 1. We're going to start high energy, go big or go home, with the theme of riot. We're going to be looking at activism and protest, and also maybe that inner riot that goes on inside of us sometimes. Hannah, do you want to talk a little bit about why we've chosen this theme to start?
I think we chose it for a lot of reasons, but I think maybe particularly we were really aware that we're living in this particular moment in time where so many people are demanding change, and that ability to achieve change or make change or be part of change is feeling harder and harder. And I suppose we were thinking about protest and activism, but also what does the possibility of riot? Is it always so negative? Is there something in that which allows real change to happen? You know, there's so much negativity around about the word riot and what that means and the chaos that that would bring. But I think there's also something in the chaos which possibly creates change. And so I think that felt important for us to explore and to ask these wonderful artists and thinkers to come along and do that. And I suppose I'm just really interested, I suppose, in what riot means to all of us. And so, Caitlin, what does it mean to you?
I think, I guess the idea of rioting feels quite male, feels quite masculine. So obviously there's a part of me that wants to be a riot, wants to find those moments and ways in my life where I can be deviant, where I can find those opportunities of dissent within my life and within my existence. I think probably the idea of actually rioting is quite unlikely for someone like me. I don't know that that's my natural place. I think I want something a bit more organised, a bit more calm, a bit more direct, I guess, in terms of I'm going to do this action and it's going to lead to change. But the rebel in me definitely enjoys that idea of being a riot, being with other people, and really causing some disruption in a world that often feels like it needs a bit of disruption, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the idea that maybe there's different ways of thinking about riot. And I love that idea. One of my favourite expressions is she's a riot. And that idea that actually sometimes just existing feels kind of riotous or deviant or challenging to the status quo. We have some wonderful guests on this episode, but let's start with our reflections. So each episode we begin with a writer or a thinker or an expert to give us a reflection piece which explores the theme from a feminist point of view, to give us, I suppose, some questions and ideas to sort of think about throughout the show. For this episode, we have the wonderful Swedish-Colombian writer and climate justice organiser, Jessica Gaitán Johannesson. And I just think she gives such a wonderful thinking around this idea. And so I'm really delighted to share her thoughts with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. My second book came out last year, and it's a collection of essays around crisis and response and climate activism and belonging, and how each of us are responding to this moment in time, depending on our vulnerabilities and our privileges. And having finished it, it was like, well, obviously I'm not done with this, because I'm going to be thinking about this stuff my entire life. So thank you so much for inviting me to keep thinking about it, and for asking me some new questions to work on. So this is also the first time that I'm reading anything new that's completely raw to people since that book came out, which feels really weird and exciting. Maybe it was on the day that a certain fossil fuel giant, the one with the bright holiday limpet as a logo, announced a 9.65 billion profit over 3 months. Maybe, though, it was on the day a teacher was interviewed in tears talking about children who couldn't afford school lunches. I'm not sure at all that it wasn't on the day in the spring of 2021 when the news let me know how many protesters had been disappeared by the Colombian police over the course of a few weeks. 84, 70, or 380. It definitely wasn't on the day in 2001 when a protester was shot by police in Gothenburg during the European summit. It couldn't have been because in 2001 we didn't have Twitter. Someone posted on social media like a challenge to the no one that is the everyone in this pit. What will it take for us to riot? Evidently, the post wasn't in response to any of the moments I've just mentioned. What will it take for us to riot, they wrote, and I read and felt cornered, hard-pressed. When you see a question like this, the easy way, perhaps the most flawed and necessary way to read it, is to make it yours and yours alone. To ask, what will it take for me to riot? I mention those moments because they were ones when I must have asked of myself what it would take. The me looks like a familiar territory made up of a spider's web between your cellular countries. It doesn't answer the question. What will it take for us to riot? Someone wrote. It could have been in response to anything in this violent everyday, and perhaps that was the point. If the thing, the atrocity it was reacting to, wasn't spelled out, then anyone could agree. You and I could paste our foremost pain on this question and take it out for a march. Cathartic, perhaps, but ultimately it dissolves in the soup where no meaning lasts for long. But here I am, thinking about it still. So what does that say about what dissolves and what leaves a mark? In the folds of an afternoon, the question makes tarmac and teeth vibrate. For a while, after a lifetime of quasi-religious adoration for things written down, I've developed a dislike of the fact that I always return to language in these situations. When questions expand far beyond what you feel capable of, the rhetorical version of a hurricane pulling your face back, I revert to the language used, as if by looking at the parts, the whole could always be made to make sense. But I'm not so sure of what poking at the ligaments of language leads to. It may reveal things, but how and who does it actually save? At least I think that the so-called power of language can be used to hide a material inequality. Analysis can go on forever. And still, this is where I go. Maybe because I'm not a political scientist, or because I don't know how to start something except by writing it down. Maybe because before you answer a question, you need to understand what is being asked. I started at the end of the question with its last word, riot. A rioter is an upprorsmakare in Swedish, a maker of revolt. This was the word used by the leader of the Christian Democratic Party last year, when she commented on another riot in the country of my birth. Why do we not have 100 wounded rioters, she said, meaning instead of wounded officers of the law. It was widely understood that she would have preferred for the police to have fired more than warning shots into the riot, into the anonymous mass made legitimate enemy under the word riot. Meaning here too is dissolved. The word riot's ancestor in Old French meant debate. By the time it made it into Old English, it had come to mean debauched living. A debate is civilized, but a riot has fallen from grace, from individual responsibility and any grievance to be respected. What has happened here, if not an intervention of some kind, turning resistance into the lack of civility, introducing a hierarchy of tactics, suggesting pure chaos. And so we have the masses, those that may be fired into. And so it's worth asking how often someone refers to themselves as a rioter, whose point of view the word itself suggests. What will it take for us to riot? The question, I suspect, alludes to a last drop in the collective glass, as if this were the same for every one of us, the drop and the glass. The question seems to look for a spark when the whole room is full of kindle. What will it take for us to riot? Who are we that haven't rioted before? The profile of the original poster that day, the one who asked this question, suggested many possible us's. Citizens of this country, women and non-binary people, anyone who's not a Tory. They hadn't specified which one they meant, and without a catalyst, it was impossible to guess. What's more, all of the above have in fact rioted before, so the question perhaps should have been, what will it take for us to riot again? During the 2021 protests in Colombia, my country, not of birth, but of childhood, the us that rioted was built out of indigenous groups, workers, students, queer people. The us were the us of the primera línea, the first line against the police, but also the protest at large, a body with so many wills and no way of saying beforehand what it would take. An unjust tax reform, but also 50 years of civil war. What would it have taken for me to be part of this us? There's the us that assumes that us is ever simple and that risking everything isn't necessary yet, not while living for some of us remains tolerable. The us now seems so fragile, both reaching out for company and hiding behind it. What will it take for us to riot? It went on like this, word by word. Working backward through the question was a little like eating it against the clock, hungrily for ablution, lightness, or diversions, anything but an answer that might actually put an end to this known world. Over the course of weeks, this is more or less what I did. What will it take for us to riot? I asked the tarmac. What will it take for us to riot? I asked the back of a friend's neck. Not even a friend, really, an acquaintance. What will it take? I asked. That was never in question. I was almost embarrassed by the relief of being able to stand on something, like knowing the answer to a riddle. What is it that takes and takes by law and normality and chains of supply, a few atrocities at a time, scraping away, leaving less with which to resist? In the question, what will it take for us to riot, the it sounds like it doesn't have a will of its own. It sounds like nothing. A necessary but passive part of the sentence, a hidden subject with the power to maneuver it all. But it will, and it does take. While we hold on to scraps it takes, and while we work for our versions of success, while I wonder where to start and what I stand to lose, while I identify the ways in which I live from the deaths of others it takes. Knowing what it is, which of course we did all along, the answer is both simple and impossible. While I wonder when it will have taken enough, it's taken even more. It will take everything. This is what it does. Thank you.
Jessica Gaitán Johannesson there doing a brilliant job of acknowledging her own distaste at herself about needing to go back to language in moments like this and to explore important questions, and then doing a stunning job of expanding that really important question, what will it take for us to riot? Hannah, how did all of that resonate with you?
Yeah, it was an incredible piece of writing, and I suppose it really opened up my thinking. Like, I think that these ideas about considering our vulnerabilities and our privileges, our complicity in the status quo, and actually how that benefits us and makes it, I suppose, takes away our impetus for solidarity or that kind of collective action, or I found really powerful and really something that I definitely want to think about more. I mean, I think that we, as somebody, as a woman of colour, as somebody who I suppose in some ways has faced a lot of oppression and has to deal with that, but also thinking on the flip side about actually, growing up in Britain, growing up in the West, having all those benefits that come with that, and all those kind of, there was a real complicity there, and to be able to actually think about yourself in both terms of your vulnerabilities and your privileges, I think is a really powerful way to consider our relationship and our position to power.
Yeah, RIOT's obviously asking us for a collective response, and often sometimes feeling like especially when we think about the climate emergency, our entire planet heading towards such catastrophe, and yet here in the global north, or in relatively wealthy countries, from I guess a middle class perspective, like feeling like we're just too comfortable to take the action that's needed. And how do we get out of that level of comfort in order to take that collective action that's really needed, that as she mentions in our piece, like people living on the front line in the global south are facing that. They're not facing any level of comfort. They're really on the front line of that emergency, and yet it is us here that need to make that change. And how do you do that when actually you're very complicit and your life's actually quite fine?
And I suppose the flip side to that is like, who gets to be comfortable in our society? Think about, austerity, the fact that people are having to work so hard. I mean, actually, are we, as our society, or the it, as she calls it, has it created a condition where actually, it's like you're talking about the middle class being so comfortable that they don't have an impetus to change, but actually also on the flip side of that people are having to work so hard just to survive that they don't have the capacity to come together, to protest, to find ways to make change, or have the energy for that. And so I think there's something really interesting about how we look at how society sort of dampens us, I suppose, or takes the fire out of us. I think that it offers us so much, I think, Jessica's kind of reflection and provocation really to us.
So as well as contributions from our wonderful guests like Jessica on Quinescast, we also bring you some fragments of real life conversations from women about our theme. So we've brought our discussion group back for season 2.
And so as well as the artistic responses, we wanted to include moments of the debate and discussion given the changing world that we are in. So we have brought together women from a range of backgrounds and experiences, including medicine, art, music, activists, social services, and we put them in a room together. I think we've decided to call them our supergroup, and we gave them some questions, and we asked them what they thought about RIOT, and they have brought, as they always do, so much wisdom and thought and a real model about how we can have these conversations with each other.
They're kind of like a house band, actually. But they have great discussion and chat rather than play music. And so if you've listened to season 1, you're going to recognise some of these voices from last time. But we also have a couple of new folks in the mix as well. So the discussion group are Lisa George, Clementine Burnley, Carrie Lunan, B. Asha, Zandra Yeaman, and Nassim Rebecca Assel. And their conversation was captured by our wonderful editor, Helena Rifai.
I think the idea of being anywhere near rioting is quite scary.
I suppose from my perspective, when I think about activism and how when groups of people who are advocating for social and political change, it gets the label of that's a riot, when actually it's really just people gathering together and, mobilising for change.
There's not this kind of sort of ideological motion or push behind rioting. Like, sort of 10 years ago, Newcastle fans lost a match in our city and went on a riot and were smashing shop windows and stuff. And that was just, that wasn't a kind of activism or an idealist that had no motivation behind it. That was just an act of violence. And riots can also be that. They don't have to kind of come from a place of social change or justice or kind of desperation. They can just be kind of collective outpourings of anger, and quite often amongst large groups of men. That's maybe where the discomfort comes from the word, because it's so associated, in my head at least, with this kind of mass outbreak of male violence.
I think that's a great point also, because when we think about riot, we immediately jump to that point of violence. But actually there's so much violence that is doled upon people, particularly when you're marginalised, that is not so overt, but it's violent. But we don't call that a riot, you know. If you even think about the politics of today and how harmful and how violent they are, nobody's saying the government is rioting. When actually you could argue, is that what they're doing? That they're mobilising against marginalisation more.
When they were talking a couple of months ago about bringing in laws to basically ban certain groups of professionals from being able to strike, so that junior doctors couldn't strike, and, you know, people that were seen as putting other people at harm if they did, I started to think that's really dangerous territory. That's where I think people would have to start to mobilise and do more than just, you know, if something like that's been made illegal, that's quite a scary world, isn't it?
I found that quite extraordinary, especially Zandra's last point. It felt, you know, when someone says something that you think, oh, that just articulates something in me that I've been thinking about, but I hadn't really put those two together. But the idea that the policies of government around, I was particularly thinking around the way in which we talk about refugees, and it feels like an act of violence, and the idea about who is the rioter was really profound, I think. So every Quines cast, we commission a playwright to create a short play inspired by our theme, and I'm going to let Caitlin introduce that.
Yeah, so you heard in our discussion group, actually, they're referencing this idea of that maybe people riot when they have nothing to lose. And this play actually really chimes with that idea. So our writer for Riot is Maryam Hamidi. Maryam is a writer for stage, screen, radio, following a long career as an actor. She was born in Iran, raised in England, and has lived in Scotland for over 20 years. This play is called The Fear Implant, and it's performed by Catherine Bissett, Habiba Saleh, and Rebecca Elise. And after that, you will hear another clip from our discussion group.
That must have been really hard for you.
Really hard? I remember looking at the woman holding her placard. To be honest, I can't even remember what it said. I mean, how pointless. And I thought, you have no idea. She had no idea what she'd cost me. But then a man got out of his car.
Take your time.
I am not saying what he did was right, but...
Go ahead.
He lost control. And I'm not saying what he did was right, but he felt he had no option. Life sentences for public nuisance weren't working. The tasers and the tear gas weren't working. We live in chaos, as rioters ruining lives, holding us to ransom. I mean, that roadblock cost me 2 crucial hours of my life. I was on my way somewhere, and that roadblock took that away from me.
But, in a way, set you on another path.
Yes. If that hadn't happened to me that day, I would never have found the courage to take this on. To attempt this research, not just in the UK, but around the world, ultimately to save lives.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what you... Ouch! Oh, excuse me.
So I think you've already shown the viewers at home one of the features.
So, for those of you joining us now, this week we've been following the work of preeminent neuroengineer and recently appointed government advisor, Dr. Selina Fitzgibbon. So, can you tell us what just happened there?
Well, I suspect you felt a little excitement.
Yes. Yes, I did. Oft! Oh, there it goes again. I'm a fairly excitable person. Is that going to keep happening?
So, the implant is just monitoring your excitement levels, and we can now turn them up using my tablet here.
Wow! So, you guessed it. Earlier this week, I became one of Dr. Fitzgibbon's test subjects, and I think you'll be very surprised at how straightforward it was. I know I was. Anyway, we got to take a behind-the-scenes look at the implantation process in Dr. Fitzgibbon's state-of-the-art lab. Let's take a look, shall we?
You might feel a little prick as it goes in just behind your ear. Now, the most important thing is for you to feel everything you want to feel.
I thought you were going to say, to not be afraid.
But fear is important on an existential level. The machine wants you to sense fear, not just your fear. The machine wants to feel it all. That way, it can fully help you.
And more, help the viewers at home.
Of course. So yes, let it feel you fully. This is the machine.
Sorry?
It's small. Can you, just on the tip of my finger, can you see it?
Not really.
Are you ready? Are you relaxed? Ah, there.
Will it sting? Or...
No, I've done it. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Fascinating stuff. And 2 days later, I can't even feel it under my skin.
And yet, it's been successfully assessing your emotional receptors over the past 48 hours.
And how are my excitement levels right now?
I've turned them down and they're steady, but your embarrassment levels...
Because... And I'm not sure what I've done to upset my producers, but to test Dr. Fitzgibbon's innovative implant to the limit, they thought it would be fun to send me on the new death drop roller coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Let's see how I get on. Gosh, I'm dreading this.
And that's VT running.
God, I don't know what's wrong with me.
You're sweating a lot.
Oh, thanks, mate. Just powder me up. Focus group said they find me more relatable if I look a bit shit.
Fucking roller coaster.
God, don't.
Is she all right?
I'm fine, Doc. I just a bit wobbly since you added my fucking bionic fear receptor.
It's incredibly safe. And I mean, your readings are great.
Really? How's that?
They're just what we want here. Supple, pliable.
Are those my readings on your tablet? Can I get a bit of a...
Best not to.
Sorry?
We're back in 5. That's the best I can do. Now try not to sweat so much, you beast.
That's my data, isn't it? Well, you need to let me... I mean, that's fucking what... That was a thrilling ride, to say the least. And Dr. Fitzgibbon was on hand to monitor my emotional readings.
Well, the receptor does a really good job of picking up high adrenaline, cortisol levels, as well as our happy hormones like oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine.
But for the viewers at home.
It feels you. Maybe more accurately than you feel yourself. And then it amplifies.
Explain amplify.
Well, it felt the fear you felt on the death drop roller coaster, and then it amplified it.
It was terrifying. I think I might have peed a little. So, essentially, you made it more terrifying for me. Why fear and not one of our other emotions like excitement or embarrassment?
Well, in an evolutionary sense, fear keeps you alive and safe. Fear keeps things ordered.
And what would you say to people who would say that's intrusive? Controlling our fear receptors like that. Ouch!
Well, we're constantly encountering intrusive stimuli every day of our lives. All this amplification does is clarify what is already there. In a way, it allows you to be more in control of yourself. So that you don't put yourself in danger or endanger others in this hyper-simulating world. It sharpens you.
Well, we'll be looking at the government's new motion receptor all week. ahead of the rollout into primary schools next year. Now, that's been somewhat controversial, Dr. Fitzgibbon.
Well, I can understand that. It's so important to stress that there is no way we would take any risks with your children. The receptor has been through many years of rigorous testing.
But there's a small movement of people terrified that this is some kind of mind control.
Are they the same people that are out there ruining our lives day to day?
Oh, I guess some of them might be the same people, yes.
As ever, we have to balance those misguided anxieties with the very real issues we're facing as a society today. Every day, people are struggling to get to work, struggling to get through no-go zones, slow marches, violent school strikes, and the recent youth insurrection movement.
And this is the part of the show when you, the viewer, get to ask Dr. Fitzgibbon your questions directly. I think we have our first caller on the line.
Hello?
Is that Sylvia from Pontefract?
It is. And I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to Dr. Fitzgibbon. Someone is finally doing something about this scourge to our society.
Oh, thanks so much, Sylvia. That means a lot.
Get rid of the lot of them. I don't care how. And you need to start young, like you say, because those thugs, Antifa, whatever, they get radicalized in their nappies now on TokTik, YouTube, Googly Eyeball or whatever.
And are there any plans to implant the receptor in babies?
No. Sadly, there's a lot of red tape in terms of scientific testing in infants.
And Sylvia, tell me how the implant is going to help you personally.
Well, Carol, I need to go places. I have things to do. If we stop the country every time people are a little peeved at the government, then we'd get nothing done.
So, is crowd control a key priority for the implant rollout?
Listen, we are not looking at limiting people's right to protest. That's enshrined in our national identity. The implant is simply there to help people remember what the risks are. It is scary. People sometimes need a nudge to be afraid.
Yes, they do. I want them afraid. Decent people like me shouldn't have to live in fear of
But
death.
that's the point, Sylvia. You'll be living in fear too.
But a healthy kind of fear.
Thanks, Sylvia. I think we have our next caller.
Hello, Carol.
Is that Hassan from Glasgow?
It is. I just don't want my kids living in manufactured fear. And I just want to say, I think policing is the more straightforward way to do this. It's worked before and it'll work again.
And what are your views on that, Dr. Fitzgibbon?
Well, in the past decade, the police have done a tremendous job in applying new measures. But what we are facing here is an epidemic of fearlessness. We keep hearing the same rallying cry of, we have nothing to lose. And what we're trying to re-trigger in our society is a reply to that. That yes, you have everything to lose. Now, people can't just hear that message. They need to feel it. To fear it.
And Dr. Fitzgibbon, could you not work on amplifying other, more positive emotions?
Oh, of course. We've tested out that rigorously. Now let me see.
I just think everyone wants to feel hopeful, that we can get out of this together. Nobody wants to see their neighbours hauled into the street and police and...
Intriguing.
Sorry?
No, carry on.
What do you say, Dr. Fitzgibbon, to those that say if people were housed, employed, had the income to pay for sufficient food, energy and medical insurance, etc., that people would be less likely to run... Excuse me, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not feeling very well.
Carol, are you okay? You look a little...
Are you doing that? Stop it, whatever it is.
Hope.
Sorry?
You mentioned it. One of the low readings here was hope. So I've attempted to amplify it to show what happens with positive emotions like hope.
Well, stop it. It's horrible. You know what I hope for? An end to all of this. To the brain tampering, to the riots on the street, to this crazy dictator. I'm so sorry, viewers.
The best way to show the viewers at home what happens when they amplify the wrong emotions.
Please, just stop.
Hello?
And we have another caller. Is that...
Dr. Fitzgibbon.
Hello?
Do you not even recognize my voice?
I'm sorry, who is this?
I guess you changed me. You changed the shape of me. Somewhere in that tablet you're holding is me. My readings, Dr. Fitzgibbon.
Shabnam?
You watched me for so long. You saw what I saw.
Shabnam, is that you?
Shabnam? I think we were expecting a Kellyanne from Suffolk.
It felt like you felt everything. And everything I felt eventually was you. What you wanted me to feel.
Well, viewers, I think we're still trying to get Kellyanne from Suffolk back on the line.
That won't be happening, Carol.
I beg your pardon?
Shabnam, where are you? It would be great if you came back to us.
You were going to stop me. Stop us.
It was very dangerous for you to leave the programme like that.
The programme?
Dangerous to who?
Dr. Fitzgibbon, can you explain what's going on?
They're so afraid of us. What happens if we don't fear them? That is what they fear. I am. We are. A danger to you, Doc.
I'm so sorry about this, viewers. The nature of live TV.
So you built solutions to a post-truth and post-fear era.
It appears we've been hacked and can't run our ad break as promised.
Resensitizing the desensitized. The world over. Fear. The new stable commodity. You stole the momentum. You made everyone afraid. You crushed our big revolution with your tiny machines.
Shabnam, where are you calling from?
I'm a citizen of a country like your one, except you think my country is nothing like yours.
Ooh, okay. Cryptic clues. Is it Venezuela, Australia?
Please, Shabnam.
See, I was her first. Her first success and her biggest failure.
Oh, the failures are all yours, darling.
That's not fair. Take ownership of me like you always wanted to. Carol, in my country, Dr. Fitzgibbon experimented as people climbed through layers of oppression, terror, fear, reprisals, hangings, some mother's child hanging from a crane, children born into the decades-deep revolutionary corruption, hanging from cranes because they spoke out, and the people left behind watched and felt the fear that that could be them. They could be the ones, tortured, sexually abused, gassed, thrown from buildings, women, girls, men, boys, but they moved through it, uncracking themselves from the paralysis of fear, and they didn't stop. They kept going. And Dr. Fitzgibbon's implant, well, fear incarnate, how to manufacture fear physiologically when people have so much to fear, they no longer fear anything.
Could you explain that more clearly for the viewers at home?
I was her first experiment. After the implant, I feared everything. I could see the uprisings falling apart. I could feel what needed to be done. But I couldn't. I couldn't rise up. Every inch of me consumed, paralyzed by this implant. So, I cut it out. I took back control. Now I can feel it all. Beyond the state. Beyond fear.
For everyone watching at home, we do not recommend cutting out your emotion receptor implant.
I already did.
Yes, but with the beta version. Removal of the new implant can only take place under sanctioned medical procedure and with government approval.
And what happens if you take a scalpel and just cut it out?
No, don't do that. The new models are more sophisticated.
Carol, under your chair.
Sorry?
Under your chair.
Why is there a scalpel here?
Carol, you need to go beyond fear.
I don't think so.
Do you want to hand me the scalpel, Carol?
Yes, yes. Wait. No, actually.
Beyond fear.
No reason for your viewers to be alarmed, Carol. I'm just going to gently adjust you here. Wait. What? Why is this not working?
No! Make it stop!
Carol, I'm not who you should be afraid of here.
I'm not afraid, you wicked numpty.
Hand me the scalpel, Carol.
I'm raging.
Beyond the fear, Carol.
Why isn't this working?
What's wrong, Doc? Little issue with your tablet there? Are you afraid?
Shabnam, give me back control. This is very dangerous.
How do you feel, Carol?
Whoa. I just feel myself again. Full with rage, joy, hope, embarrassment, excitement, rage, fear, rage. Like I'm licking a rainbow of emotions, and this abomination. I want this out of me.
Shit. Hand me the scalpel, Carol. Please, oh God. No, Carol, stop.
Out of me. Oh! I do not recommend trying this yourself at home.
Absolutely fucking not. Oh, Carol, you fucking idiot.
Some rather fruity language. Apologies to our viewers. Oh, there. Wow. That's rather a lot of blood for something so tiny.
I'm sorry, Carol. It was the only way for them to see.
The emergency kill switch features kicks in immediately on unsanctioned removal. You have around 90 seconds to live.
Oh. All right.
A kill switch for uprising. A kill switch for dissent, for complaint, for hope, for a better tomorrow.
Sorry to interrupt you. I can see what I need to take. I can see what I need to take, and I feel like I can just take it. Control, match, fire, voice, speech, together. Hope, rising up, voice, my voice, power, shout, scream, resist. We are many.
Carol?
Carol? You murderer.
I don't think so, Doc. I'm not the murderer, and everyone can see that.
You murdered TV Choice Presenter of the Year, 2029, 2032, 2000... Shabnam? Oh. Right. She's gone. So, no need to be concerned. Carol is dead. That's obviously awful. But she died doing what she loved. Oh, right, the producers are talking to me. Wow. Okay, great. Right, okay, just reading the auto cue. Next up, Finchley's in the kitchen making chocolate burritos. Yes, you heard me, chocolate burritos. And we'll be taking a look at mid-season fashion with the everlasting debate, raincoats versus brollies. We'll get cleaned up here and see you after the break.
I think when you see people that you care about or love having their life or liberty threatened, when you see the world being destroyed, when you see a future that you think, I can't live in that future, or when you see people's hope being taken away, those are, I think, the things that make me very angry and would make me riot.
Consistently making people feel wrong and not putting the resources in that support them to do their job well happens all the time. Enrages me.
When I see a lack of interest in what people actually want from their lives. So sometimes I see this in schools or in communities where you'll have a project and it's supposed to be participatory. So they'll come in and ask people what they want, but they're not actually interested in what people want because there's a budget and there's a plan. And it was decided 2 years in advance what the outcome of that would be. Ever since I was young, and in a being brought up in a fairly religious community, it's been obvious to me that the people who hold power have no interest in sharing it, and that most of the activities that are generated are about maintaining a status quo. And as soon as that status quo is challenged, everything comes in. All the internal psychology about people being bad and people not behaving. And it really, really enrages me.
The ever-wise Clementine Burnley with her beautiful voice at the end of that clip from the discussion group there. Yeah, it does sound like that's almost a direct response to the play, and Clementine talking about those in power having no interest in challenging it, and that being so key in terms of revolution. We often think about Riot as being a flashpoint, a kind of moment of revolt, but actually what Maz is exploring there in that play, that moment when actually what happens when that continues, when it doesn't flash up and then move into something else. You know, she's in response there to what's been happening in Iran, where as we record this episode, women have been protesting the government since the death of Mahsa Amini in September 2022. So, you know, that's autumn last year. And I love what she's done there with that play and taking it out into this other world where that situation has continued and is continuing, and creating really a desperate situation for a government who is desperate to hold on to that power and has, as Clementine says, no interest in challenging it.
And also speaks to where we are now. I was thinking particularly around the kind of narrative around climate change, the idea, or the climate emergency. I mean, how inconvenience can be and is often reframed as chaos. So the inconvenience of protest reframed as chaos, and how dangerous that narrative is to our right to protest. And we can see how that's been used to curtail protest. And I was thinking about, we kind of posed that question, what will it take us to riot? But what that play made me think is actually, maybe the question is, and I'm thinking about the it that Jessica spoke of, but what does it take from us to render us unable to resist? And that's what I was really feeling in that play. And then when Clementine talking about how actually the status quo has no interest in giving up any of its power. I mentioned earlier that for so many of us, the act of living and being who we are feels like an act of resistance, and that the articulation of our experience is a riot. You know, and I say this partly as an introduction to our next guest, the wonderful poet Joelle Taylor. She is quite an extraordinary performer and writer, and for so many of us, we know who she is in her work. But for those who don't, she's the author of 4 collections of poetry and a novel, and her most recent collection, Canto and Other Poems, won the 2021 T.S. Eliot Prize and was the subject of the Radio 4 Arts documentary, Butch. So I'm really excited to be able to share this set. It really electrified the room, and I think listening to your headphones will be a real experience. So, and after Joelle, we will have another clip from our discussion group.
Oh, hello everyone. It's absolutely such an honour and a privilege to be here on the Quines cast. And it's really thrilling to be on a podcast in a room with women creating and thinking in such extraordinary and forensic ways. And just to pick up on something that Jessica said earlier about the definition of riot, because that's what I'm going to really be talking about. Well, I'm both debauched and dissident, so I literally am a riot. And I'm going to be reading from this book, which is not Canto, it's called Canto, but everyone gets offended. It's called Canto and Othered Poems. It's a set of cantos about butch dykes. And for the benefit of the viewers, I'm a beautiful young lady in her mid-20s in a long, flowing Laura Ashley dress. I'm a butch, a masculine presenting lesbian, like my father. No, really. So this poem, the whole book came out of a commission from Apples and Snakes, and the commission was to respond to the theme of protest. And I was touring at the time, and I just flicked on Facebook, and I started to write a poem about protest, which is like, protest is great. Ugh. And you're like, and then I read another one of my friends had died. Another butch dyke had died, and it's how we die, which made me think about how we live. And I wrote this poem. And it's written in rounds because in the logic of the poem, The narrator is in a boxing ring, an old haggard Butch Dyke, hello, slowly getting dressed into a three-piece suit. Canto. Some girls fall from sunlit skies straight down into flat pack floral dresses, grab their smiles from a hook behind the door, rescue their faces from riptides of mirrors. Some girls are always falling. Round 1. The body as battleground. You fall and miss your body entirely, land somewhere in enemy territory, behind the lines. Your body, a foreign country you cannot get a visa for. Your skin, a parachute caught in tree branches. You awaken in no man's land. Gunfire across the horizon, and women are crucified on hashtags across the dark hills. Your trench is crowded with dead women, wearing faces that try to escape them, and the clothes of someone you once knew. There are landmines buried deep beneath your skin, and no one understands them. In between the battle cry and the bedroom is this sticky, quiet, this no man's land, and this is where you live. Men explode when you least expect it. All these lifetimes searching for body. Round 2, the body as protest. Born backward, bright back and wide, skin rolling, cigarettes and shirt sleeves, skyline chin, Levi 501s curled up to cuff, lip the same, white t-shirt so they can project themselves on you, tsunami quiff, and black boots whose roots spread and tangle through the center of the earth. You don't wear makeup to prove you have not made anything up. This is your face. Your father's friends gave it to you. One Christmas Eve, 1973, you unwrapped it from beneath a decorated tree from which the rest of your family hung. They sipped cocktails as you slowly disappeared, swaying gently to that wail of celebration, the harbinger of party. You cut your first suit from the thick silence when you enter a room. They call you Butch. The name derived from Butch Cassidy. You are the descendant of outlaws. Irony incarnate. Woman butchered, cut into select meats, middle distance stare, shoulder, breast, wild tongue. They fear you. Boy, dyke. Diesel female sodomite, lady faggot bull dyke, bulldagger queer pervert, gold star silverback stud invert, kiki shemale drag clone, baby butch tomboy, stone. But if you are a stone, you are a chip off the mountain, and you join an avalanche of wrong walking women, shaven heads like tumbling rocks. You keep them close, they are. Rosary. On the dance floor, we are tidal. heckle the night, passing nods between us and handshakes that stop our hands shaking. We are untamed, a wilderness of women. We are waste ground. What a waste, love. Nothing grows on us, barren and sterile, an unuseful female, empty as church pews. The wind rattles its fists inside our wounds. Come on then, snake boy. Come now, heretic healer. Where are the maths that solve us? How do we fit into your algebra, your binary code? Our bodies are political placards, and we dance as demonstration of independence. We revolution in the living room, uprising in the public toilets, insurgency in the suburbs. Fear us, come on in. Fear is a girl backing into her face. Is it not camp enough to be your best friend? Our closet, a strata of fossilized clothes, girl pelt. Is it not funny enough for your talk show, bruv? A woman without makeup is a woman without a face. How were we to know that when we were cleansing, we were erasing our whole existence? Round 3. The body as trespass. Dyke. You are a trespasser in your own body. The landowners are men who pass by you in the street. In Accrington, cars stammer and words ejaculate from half-slit windows. Your mother's phone rings in the middle of the night. Shh, do you know about your daughter? 3 Pentecosts with Nazi insignia break into your home. God is an atheist who no longer believes in himself, and they unscrew the light bulb slowly, eyes fixed on the unmade-up girl, trembling defiance. They whisper a prayer for you to leave your family. You do. 13, and a man pulls you over the back seat of a bus and stubs his kiss out on your cheek. Slowly, a boxer's embrace, but he doesn't throw the punch. He posts it. You wait by letterboxes, flinch when it chatters, never answer the phone. In Brixton, men cradle their fists like babies and watch as you walk past as though they are thin-ribbed cats in the undergrowth and you, a small, shaven-headed bird. There's a reason. Women are compared to birds and it's got nothing to do with wings. Some songs harden on the wind. Some girls are kept in gilded cages on suburban mantelpieces. 18, out, clubbing with the crew, a baby butch in the abattoir of beauty, the quiver and frantic, white girls with bindies, white boys with dreadlocks, saris and docks, tribal tattoos. We are the modern primitives, wearing our heritage like red flags, like cowardice. And you dance as though you are stamping out flames, as though your boots are hammering in the last nails to the coffin of the old gods. Strangers hug and tell each other secrets. You are ecstatic. But then the light looks away. Skinny wolves separate you from the flock. Wallpaper, the drugs no longer working as they amber eye you. Aberration, and they must conquer what they cannot name. 23. And you finish rehearsals in the city with nowhere to sleep. So you wish the posh kids good night. And you walk, 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 and you walk. And he finds you quickly. And when you come round, you are empty. And his eyes are above you, twin gods. This is the first time you think you're going to be killed. And when you're not, it's a disappointment. The morning after pill is a communion wafer, and you are forgiven. Your trespasses you learn quickly. Men are broken things, breaking things. Round 4, the body as cemetery. The first time you die, you drink a bottle of cleaning fluid, and moths of nurses wrap you in white, swaddling curses. Fuck you, they whisper a back alley lullaby. Fuck you, they croon as you're interred into your hospital bed. And when the mourners come, they seem happy. A picnic in a mortuary. The third time you die, it is classic, cinematic. A bottle of your mother's sleeping pills, you swallow them without water, watching a film about a girl who is not loved. The film ends, the cinema empties, and no one notices the thin thing lying there with a mouth like an earthquake in a country no one can spell. They don't find you till morning, and when they do, you are packed off to the fat priests of psychiatry to apologize. You lie, and your smile is a torn cunt, a split. Round 5, the body as backroom. Each night, we have a lock-in, a meet at the back of my heart, smoking in circles, handing grins between each other like pass the parcel, opening each layer of the smile until the pith is revealed. We are ferocious women, eating our children, our youth, stepping out of our skins and leaving them draped behind us like soiled wedding dresses falling into each other's mouths. This is love, furious love. We die slowly. Cigarettes stubbed against obsidian skies. A brain explodes into night butterflies. A car loses its grip on reality, suicides by the bouquet full. Not one of my friends was allowed to live in her body unaccompanied. Always a landlord, always a lodger. Round 6, the body as haunted house. In sleep, my body is a haunted house. There are footsteps along fallopian corridors. The corridor is a rope strung above a mouth. I have been woken by blurred voices without bodies, quiet arguments in my basement. Once I was possessed by a small girl who looked the same as me, who ate herself on a Sunday afternoon while her parents were downstairs hardwiring their hangovers and Christmas tunes looped in nooses. My heart is a church bell and nobody visits, and God is a man with his hands in his pockets, watching. Round 7. The body as uprising. Oh, you bayonet boys, you truncheon rub. My face doesn't fit my face, but your fist does. Years from now, no one will remember how we fought, how each bruised knuckle was a white boy's head bent in prayer. No one will remember the love, how alike it is to rage, how screams made corporeal are rainbows, or how rainbows became corporate logos, or how we carved our epitaphs into a stone wall. No one will remember unpicking acronyms by candlelight, so fuck it. I'll be in the back bar of heaven. Kaz! We'll be getting a rounding and releasing that laugh. Wild birds escaping her mouth, and none of this will matter. I'll be riding the ghost roads with Valentine, bareback, knee clench on her Harley. I'll be scuffing the city with Dudzilly. Men will stare like open shaft mines. I'll be walking the white lines with Angel, tight mouth, antelope heart. Kaz, Sam, Velda, Avi, B. I can't remember the names of all my dead friends, but they're here now. Our grief, a leather jacket, our laughter, static, as we fade to a sepia, the colour of blood mixed to water, disappearing down a plug hole, much like the meeting of our legs. Remember this. My whole life is a protest. Thank you.
RIOT is something that feels dangerous and countercultural. And it makes me wonder a little bit whether if we give the countercultural a chance to express itself, that we might learn something from that sudden emergence of something we don't yet know about. And so for me, there's something around allowing ourselves to be changed. You know, not to maintain this, like, the personality that we know and that we want to be the same forever, but just allowing something to come into our lives and change us. I think that could be solidarity to the people who we don't know and to the issues that we're not informed about.
If you think of any time in your life where you've had real growth through change, you've always been uncomfortable. There is always discomfort before you have growth and change. So
our natural default position is always going to be to avoid anxiety. That's the human experience, is just to do whatever we can to avoid anxiety, whether it's the friends that we make or the partners that we choose or the jobs that we do. And if you never go into positions of discomfort, then you never learn.
So many lines within what Joelle has said in that piece. I mean, she speaks to the pain, the joy in identity and in community. And yeah, I don't think we will forget it.
I think it's the epic quality of her work, but but also the intimacy of it. And I was thinking about how Jessica started this by talking about the mass and that anonymous mass, and what Joelle does so beautifully is she names the women in that mass, and it's such a powerful moment, I think. And such a powerful act to name the people in the mass, in the mass that can be shot at. That's the protest of her work, I think. And after that set, the room stood up and would have followed her anywhere. And I think listening to that, I feel that same sense.
I'm here as we come to towards the end of our podcast. I'm feeling very strongly that I would absolutely follow any one of these Quines into the RIOT. And to kind of close out our show, I'm delighted to introduce Pei, our musician for the evening. Pei is also known as Gillian Katungi. She's a multidisciplinary artist who expresses herself under the name Pei, which means peace. What a beautiful way to end with her. Pei experiments with new forms of expression, finds freedom in the space between established forms. And here she is with a final piece of music to close out our show on RIOT.
Come closer to the edge of time, cross the lines. I'm inviting you to ride closer to the moon. I'm inviting you to touch the stars. Do you know, do you know, do you know, do you know? Do you know what you're made of? I wrote this when I needed to pick myself up, or not pick myself up, respond to a feeling all the way down here and remind myself that I'm made of just infinite magic, and I've got so much. Come closer. I'm worthy of joy. Sometimes I feel like we're working so hard, doing. And I have to remind myself that I'm worthy of rest, worthy of this space, worthy of all the abundance that life has to offer me. I am healing. I see me in that mess I do, and I love me. I love me through. I love me through. I love me through it. Come closer, closer to the edge of time. Cross the lines. I'm inviting you to ride, play. Come closer to the moon. I'm inviting you to touch the stars. Do you know, do you know, do you know? Do you know what you're made of? Do you know? Do you know, do you know? Well, let me tell you. And this is the bit where I do all the lovely things for myself and show myself how wonderful and worthy I am. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed our show. If you did, please tell your pals, like, subscribe, and maybe write us a review. It really helps others to find our show.
The next episode of Quines Cast will be out next week, and the theme is loss. It's a really beautiful and moving episode, so please do join us then.
Our guests for Loss include singer-songwriter Rachel Samani, author Catherine Simpson, poet Catherine Wilson-Gary, so many Catherines, and also featuring a short play by playwright Afia Campbell. This episode of Quinescast is curated and presented by Hannah Lavery and Caitlin Skinner, featuring original work by our contributors Jessica Gaitán Johannesson, Joelle Taylor, Maryam Hamidi, Pei, who was accompanied by Rory Comerford.
Performers in The Fear Implant by Maryam Hamidi were Catherine Bissett, Habib Basali and Rebecca Elise.
Our editor was Helena Rafai, our project producer was Barbie Lyon, and our sound engineer was David Key.
The Stella Quines team are General Manager Barbie Lyon, Associate Director of Engagement Beth Godfrey, Artistic Director and CEO Caitlin Skinner, Company Administrator and Young Quines Producer Erin McGee.
The Quinescast image is by Julia Francis Dugan. Quinescast is possible because of funding from Creative Scotland and support from our partners, the Travers Theatre, and from our supporters, the Quines Collective.
Stellar Quines is an intersectional feminist theatre company based in Edinburgh. This year we are celebrating 30 years of keeping the fight for gender equality centre stage. It's a tough time for the arts at the moment and we really need your help. If you are a supporter of the arts, of feminism, if you believe that the arts has a role to play in the fight for gender justice in Scotland and beyond, then we would love for you to be a part of it by joining our new supporter scheme, Quines Collective. You can choose how much you want to donate, or if you can't contribute financially, you can also offer your time or just your good wishes. We just really want you to be a part of what we are doing. You get special updates, a badge, and you get to be part of a very cool gang of people. The money that the collective raises helps us to keep delivering for the audiences, artists and communities that we serve, and we are very, very grateful for their support. You can find out more on our website at stellaquines.co.uk.